Welcome to the Finding Purpose LiveCast, where we feature authors, leaders, and speakers of purpose on a live platform to have truly authentic conversations. And now your host, Davin Salvagno.
Welcome back to another episode of the Finding Purpose LiveCast. I am excited today to have my friend Charlie Malouf, President and CEO of Broad River Retail, doing business as Ashley HomeStores, back on the LiveCast today. And I know that a lot has transpired in the last 6 months. Obviously, since COVID happened, we've launched this new series of the Finding Purpose LiveCast entitled "And Then COVID Happened." And Charlie, I know that you and your team have been through a lot these last 6 months. And so I thank you for taking time out of your schedule and for being willing to share vulnerably what you guys have been through, what you personally have been through over this past period of time. And I love your United shirt. I know there's a story behind that. But hey, how have things been? Talk to me about where you guys are at and what you've been through.
Awesome. Hey, thank you so much for having me again, Davin. It's great to see you and Adam and just to share. I mean, this is it's an honor to be able to speak to your audience again and to be here, to be invited. This is a break in my day that we get to do. And then COVID happened. The first time I think was that we were together on the live cast was in May. And I said, well, do you want to talk about what's going on with COVID? You said, no, I think people have had enough of that. It's 24/7. Let's talk about something different. I said, great, no problem. So it's been, what a year. What a year. And I will be glad to take you through it from my company's perspective and from my personal perspective. And I am going to, you've twisted my arm a little bit, but you've convinced me it's okay to get a little bit vulnerable. So I will be happy to get vulnerable if it can help someone else who might be going through anything similar. And I know it's just been a really tough year for so many people and just really been sensitive to that. So the year started off great. I mean, the year, if you can remember, well, maybe not for, if you remember in politics and impeachment, but for us, and I'm not trying to get political, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to do that either. But for us, the year started off great. We were off to the races. We had this beautiful playbook for 2020, and it was our 2020 annual plan, right? We all start with these great plans, and we were so proud of everything that was in this book. And our first 11 weeks, we were off to the races. We were sprinting off to the races, having a record-setting year, and we were getting ready to open a second campus. And we knew that, and this was a major investment of a vision that we had laid out a couple of years prior that was coming to fruition through the grit of our people pushing forward. And so we knew coming into this year, we always like to have a word of the year. Last year it was purpose, as you know. And so this year we were thinking about, well, how do we kind of replicate this special culture that we have and we did like, what's our challenge going into this year? We got to systematize our processes, make sure that we keep the culture going. We have 2 campuses instead of 1. We have 24 stores, but we were going to have another second campus and distribution center. And we said, well, being united in unity is going to be really important going into this second year. We can't have one group feel like they're any less than the other group, or that we're on different sides of the state or different sides of the country, that we're not still together. So my business partner Manny really was the one who kind of he felt strongly about it, and our executive team really endorsed it after we did that whole work. And so how prophetic did that turn out to be in this year? It has proven to be such a great word of the year, just like purpose was last year and our other words. It is proven to be very prophetic. So our world really changed on March 13th. Now, March 12th, we were celebrating the grand opening of a brand new store in Raleigh, North Carolina. And folks were a little bit nervous about the coronavirus was just kind of coming around. I had a couple of trips. One was canceled in March, and another one was maybe it was going to be canceled, maybe it wasn't. But we were still a little bit unsure. The NBA, I think that Wednesday, the 11th, had just started to put their season on pause. but we had this grand opening and ribbon cutting. So we went through with that. We were all at dinner together. That was the last time we would be at dinner together for several months as our team celebrating. On Friday, the 13th, March 13th, we went into 24/7 crisis management mode. And it was just nonstop. The world got to be a little bit scary place. Our mantra became at that time, we said, look, we don't know what's going to happen, but it's going to require shared sacrifices for all so that we ensure brighter tomorrows for everybody, for every memory maker in our company. And so that just became our mantra. It's really been what we've maintained and repeated to ourselves many, many times over the last several months. So for the first couple of weeks of this, we had to throw in so many different programs. We had actually just hired 2 new vice presidents, a new head of our retail teams, and a new head of our human capital. Boy, did we put them to work. So we had to come up with, what were we going to do? Were we going to do layoffs? We were reading the book, Everybody Matters. No way can we do layoffs. Business was automatically hit the skids. People are scared to come into their stores. We got to negotiate with landlords. We got to figure out, like, if business is going to dry up, now we got to do forecasting. What's going to, okay, now we got to understand our runway. What can we survive? Oh, by the way, we've got this second distribution center that we're supposed to be opening. It's on the, how are we going to finish construction if the state's shutting down? If we can't get workers out there, so what do we do? So my business partners, Charlie Workman and Manny and I, in our executive team, we all had to get focused on certain initiatives that we had to kind of own. Manny kind of oversaw our stores and what we're going to do with store openings or closures. And Charlie Workman went to 4 Oaks, North Carolina, and was really responsible for bringing that distribution center online. And then we're like, well, we have to hire some people. And so we hired 36 people in the latter part of March in the start of the pandemic. It blows me away. And we opened that DC and somehow finished it. There's no turning back. We had this big loan on the DC, and you see the renderings behind me. I'm in our original campus. This was our second campus. And then we made the decision to bring in inventory, because corporate really wanted us to continue to have inventory flowing. But at that point, we were trying to say, hey, we got to stop all inventory and cash going out because sales are drying up. So we're trying to just press pause, and we have to protect our people as much as we can. And so I went into negotiating with our landlords on rent deferrals, rent abatements, just because that's what you're supposed to do. And it was like negotiating 24 leases all at once. So it was and then how do we protect our people, and creating furlough programs where they were going to have some financial impact. So we had to come up with programs that paid them money so they could take some time off if they weren't comfortable being in the store. We had about a third of our sales force. And we just said, look, if you're not comfortable working for whatever reason, we're going to make it easy for you to step on the sidelines and protect yourself, protect your family. But for those who still wanted to work or needed to work, we're going to figure that out too. And so we really tried to kind of work through that. So some stores had to close. Some stores opened, but opened at reduced hours because we didn't have 2 opening shifts, So we just adapted. It was very agile, and it was like a new furlough program. Every week we were coming up with a new program and trying to manage what everyone. It's like everyone had a different need, and so trying to put in programs that solve for each person's different needs while trying to keep the ships going, pushing forward. And we kind of modeled out, okay, well, if business dries up, well, at this point, early on, and I'm still keeping you early, right, in late March, at that point, the president's saying, hey, we'll be out of this by Easter. And people were like, hey, once we're out of flu season, this thing will be over with. None of us thought at that point that this thing was going to last 6 months. We thought, okay, maybe a few months. So we modeled out for the second quarter, well, what does minus 25% revenue look like? Okay, we can do that, no big deal. What does minus 50% look like? Okay, well, that gets a little bit tighter, but we're going to be okay. okay, what does minus 75% look like? Ooh, okay, well, we're going to lose some money, but we'll slide backwards, but we'll still be able to survive. Let's hope that doesn't go longer than like 13 weeks. What does minus 100% look like? We did not have a model for that. It did not look good. And so we were trying to keep the business going. We had deliveries we had to deliver, folks who still needed to get paid. We knew that we couldn't go with no revenue coming in and take care of all 600 plus families who depended on the company. And many who still wanted to work, we couldn't take care of all of them for an extended period of time, but we were going to do whatever we could. And so at that time, we also put in place, we had a founder scholarship fund that our co-founders created when we bought the business a couple of years ago. And I called one of them and said kind of what we were going through. And I said, listen, would you mind if we took some of the money in that founder scholarship fund? A lot of our people are going to go through some hardship. And this was before we knew about the stimulus money. I said, would you mind if we I don't think we should do a scholarship fund for 5 or 6 people this year. What if we just help more people with some checks? And so he said, yeah, no problem. And whatever you need, I'll put in more in. So we created a Memory Maker Assistance Fund. And we got stimulus checks out to our people before the federal stimulus money came out. Before we even knew about it, we agreed to do that. So that was one of the things that we created to take care of our people and try to ease their path on these furloughs while also trying to keep stores going and deliveries going. But deliveries got really scary at that time. Imagine you're a delivery driver and you have an elderly parent at home, and you don't want to get them sick, but you go into someone's home, and then when you finish the delivery, the guest comes to you and says, hey, can you sign this waiver? My doctor told me that whoever I come in contact with, I have to have them sign a waiver because I have COVID-19. And then the driver freaking out, oh my gosh, I've been in contact with you. I'm going to get my 70-year-old dad sick. And if that happens, and then if I can't work, I can't make money. These are some of the real stories that were happening. And we had to try to figure out how to take care of everyone through that time. So we did all that. And we made it through, and for the first 4 weeks were incredibly tough for a lot of reasons. Once the stimulus checks hit, I will tell you, our business went from being down about 75% for about 4 weeks to really the demand came back, which was a blessing. It's once people got their stimulus checks and they're stuck at home, they all wanted to change out their furniture all at once. So that actually helped business. At a personal level, what a lot of people don't know, I've shared this with you, Davin, and obviously my family knows about it and my business partners know about it, but I have an arrhythmia issue that's regulated with medicine. And when my body was basically producing natural adrenaline, because I was super hyper focused and really worried about all of our people for the first couple weeks, it spun my arrhythmia out of control. And so I'm doing virtual visits with my cardiologist. And so for 31 out of 35 days, I was out of rhythm with my heart rate. And I had a resting heart rate of about 150. I couldn't really exercise, so I could take walks. All during the first 5 weeks of COVID. The first couple of weeks, it triggered my arrhythmia. And then every time my doctor kept saying, you don't want to come into the hospital right now. I'll cardiovert you, but I don't know if that will solve it. So I say 31 out of 35 days. It was out of rhythm for a week. And then he's trying to correct my medicines. It went back into rhythm for 4 days. But then it spun back out for 3 or 4 weeks. And I was about to go get a cardioversion, which is where they reboot your heart to get it beating again, get the electrical circuits working right. But finally, in early May, I guess, after getting through Easter and through the first 5 weeks or so of that pandemic, it's snapped back into rhythm, and I haven't had an issue with it since. So that was tough in April, just like dealing with a resting heart rate, your heart rate's out of rhythm, and you're really uncomfortable in your own skin, and it's beating 150 a minute, and you still have all this work, like piles of work, and because you have to talk to every landlord, you have to make so many decisions. We're on conference calls and video calls, so we're getting used to this new work rhythm from 7 or 8 a.m. until 8 or 9 p.m. right? So it was just not a lot of joy in those first 6 or 7 weeks, because you're worried about people, and you're worried about people catching COVID or being safe, and not wanting to and keep the business afloat so that you can't so that you can preserve people's jobs. And then you have hundreds of people on furlough and wanting to bring them back. Our brighter tomorrows could only be brighter if we could bring everyone back. Another personal story that not too many people know, I shared it with my executive leadership team. So I've got an 80-year-old dad who lives in Tampa, and he was in an assisted living facility. And this is in mid-April, and his roommate, or the guy in the other suite, got COVID. They rushed him out of the room, and so they gave my dad a test. And 2-3 days later, I was informed that my dad had COVID. And this was on a Sunday afternoon. I vividly remember it. So again, my heart rate is like resting at 150. And I just found out my dad has COVID. He's 80 years old. And at that point, you find out someone has COVID and they're 80 and they're not in great health. You think it's a death sentence. I mean, I'll be honest with you. And so I had to, it was a tough phone call. I'm replaying it because it was a tough call. I had to call my dad because, I guess I drew the short straw with my sister and my brother. I'm the oldest. So my sister said, well, you need to call him and tell him. So that was a really tough phone call. He went into shock. He didn't know what that meant. He was already kind of quarantined, which was isolating him. He was used to kind of being able to drive off the facility. So not being able to see people was already tough. And so they were going to put him into a private room, where he had to be quarantined for like 2 weeks. And I just knew solitary confinement for my dad for 2 weeks, that was a death sentence in and of itself. And so he didn't make it 24 hours. He had to leave. Fortunately, the bright side of this is my sister, through the Florida Department of Health, found a COVID hotel, and the Florida Department of Health took a keen interest in my dad. And so they took care of him. They gave him meals. He could stay for free. And they did his laundry and stuff. And he was bored out of his mind, but he never showed any symptoms. He remained asymptomatic. And we couldn't get him into a new place until a new place was taking applicants again. So around the 1st of June, there was a place that we could get him into, but he had to have 2 negative tests in a row. And so he kept testing positive over and over every week. So after 6 positive tests, he finally got 2 negative tests. And so and he had never had any symptoms, thank God. So we got my dad taken care of. We got him into a new place at the beginning of June. So, and now business has recovered. Demand is going better. We're working to try to figure out who comes back and bringing our folks home. And our whole message was, some other folks I'd heard in business, I'm not trying to be critical, but they were, what I was hearing was, hey, this is a chance to really prune. You've had people you've wanted to cut, and you can cut the bottom 10% of your people or your workforce. This is a chance to really get lean. They're really going after that 1980s Jack Welch mantra of cut your bottom 10%. I was like, that is inhumane. That is not what we're about. That's not what we're studying. That's not what our people want to do. We're sitting here reading a book, Everybody Matters. That's not truly human leadership. We're trying to bring everyone back. If we have someone who shouldn't be here, that's shame on us. We should have managed them and led them differently or better. That responsibility is on us. Not here during COVID in the worst recession, the worst period. Are we going to kick them over to be, to try to find a job or to be jobless or to be a steward of the government? We're just not going to do that. So it's really important for us to bring all of our people home. And regardless of whatever we had to endure as a company or pain that we had to endure, we were just dead gum set. We were going to try to bring all of our memory makers home, or at least offer them a job to come back. Now, whether they choose to come back or not would be up to them. And some of them said, hey, we super appreciate all the benefit programs you've given us, all the free interest loans you've given us, all the assistance funds you've given us, but I'm going to do something else. I can't come back to work. I've got to work from home with my kid or this, that, the other. And so that would be where we didn't have a job where they could work from home. We were very adaptive. Like our call center, for the first time, we were having them go to work from home, and our corporate office was working from home. But at retail, I mean, you have to work in a store and you have to do it safely. Or if you're on a delivery or in the distribution center, you can't like load out trucks or do deliveries from home. You just can't do that. And that's the thing about the workforce, where they say, hey, the white collar workforce that's working from home, they're dealing with certain issues, but not everyone is like, you have frontline heroes, the folks on the front lines in the healthcare industry, in the police force, and other industries, government industries or nonprofits that are serving the community. But you also have people working like retail or restaurants who are working frontline jobs facing the public, or working in Targets or Walmarts or what have you, where they're really serving the public. And so that's our people too. They have to come to work. Am I going too fast, too slow?
Let's pause for a second, because you covered a lot of ground there. But for everyone who just listened to that segment, I think it's really important. There's a few things that you said that I want to make sure we don't lose sight of, is that here you are leading an organization with 600 plus memory makers. And I love that you call them memory makers. And everyone's dealing with this sudden pandemic. It's happening so rapidly. And you have to worry about obviously shepherding them, stewarding them, all of your locations, negotiating contracts with landlords. At the same of all that, you have your own health that you need to be concerned about. And then obviously you get the news about your dad. And that is just, I want to pause, because that is a lot for any leader to have to walk through simultaneously. And what I want to highlight is that the one main thing, obviously, that you were concerned for, outside of obviously your health and your dad's health and all of that, was, are we going to continue to be able to survive this, to deliver on our purpose? Right? You were like, well, what does 25% look? What does 50 look like? What does 75 look like? What is it going to take so that we can continue to still be here, to make memories, to be the light, to do the things that we're in business for? And the other thing that you focused on was, this isn't an opportunity to think about ourselves. This is an opportunity for us to get lean and to rectify our mistakes and our failed opportunities where maybe we could have led better or whatever, and to cut people out. There's two shirts I've seen during this time. There's one shirt that I saw that said people over everything. And you might see that out there on LinkedIn. And then there's another shirt that I saw that said others over self. And I love both of those shirts. I know we're fans of themed t-shirts, but you guys really live that out. You're walking through this and you're saying, listen, we have buildings and we have inventory. And I know there's an entire inventory story you haven't told yet. That's an amazing story. But we have buildings, we have inventory, we have assets. But out of all of that, we have people. And people aren't our greatest asset. People are the greatest partners of our purpose. And we need to figure out how to get them through this time and to bring all of them back, right? And then, give them the opportunity and deal with things that we need to deal with. But how do we bring everybody back? How do we continue to press forward? And so I just wanted to kind of quickly say, well done through all of that, because as a leader, you had your own internal struggle, but yet you never lost sight of your purpose, and you never lost sight of your people in shepherding through, what has arguably been the strongest and most challenging storm that any of us have ever faced in our lifetime. Charlie, it's huge.
Well, it all happened very suddenly, and it was very jarring. I'm glad you pressed pause on the conversation. I mean, it's our purpose is furnishing life's best memories. And listen to your last livecast with Ken Blanchard, and he talked about his memorial celebration for his house, and that transition event that he had to end it. But he also talked a lot about people, and it's all about people and about servant leadership, and the greatest exemplar of that, in history. And so, when we look at it, when we say furnishing life's best memories, we always say it's outward focused. it's always about, we put the period on memories, but you could take the period off and say for others or for other people. It's always about how do we create or furnish life's best memories for other people. And those other people could be our own memory makers in our company, our guests in our stores, who are the families of our memory makers, who depend on their person providing for their family, or the people we get to serve in the community. We continue to serve in the community through this, by the way, in many powerful ways. And so it's definitely outward focus. And then we also knew that, hey, we just told ourselves it is a shared sacrifice for today, for brighter tomorrows. And that we'll be judged on these crucible moments. Like, we will be judged on how we treat our people in this time. And by the way, our people are going to fight for us in this time because of how we've treated them in the past. I said for many years, like, at some point, we're going to have to lean on the goodwill that we've created with all of you. I don't know when that is. I hope that we never have to, but we probably will. Like, there probably will be another time or another recession. And so I hope that we can treat you so well that when that time comes, when the company needs your support, you'll be there. And I think that's really what it's about. And so I know that they'll come back and see the decisions we made and who we made them for. And that's, like, it's really important that we're for other people. And those other people begin and end with our own people at home. We have to take care of our own. We have to lead by that example. And so I'll just continue with the story if you want. So we were around in May, and so we had made the decision to bring in inventory, to fill up inventory in our second distribution center, because corporate really wanted us to. They were nervous about the demand sliding backwards, and they wanted to keep product flowing. Now, that's proved to be a very prophetic move for us. And so in May, inventory dried up around in our industry, because manufacturing, people couldn't come to work. A lot of factories in the U.S. got shut down. And then if they were allowed to open, many times you might have either a couple things happen. Folks didn't come to work because they couldn't come to work. They had a child at home, or they had an illness or a compromised immune system. Or if you had a COVID breakout, you had to shut down that line because of the contact tracing and everything else. So manufacturing on durable, big, bulky, durable goods got greatly reduced. And then it had already been reduced from like materials coming over from China or overseas. And so, that part of it is what the government wanted through the stimulus, was to stay out of the workforce for a period so that we could, get the virus cases to go the other direction. And so we were preparing for low demand. So we took the risk and brought this inventory in. We got to an all peak inventory state. Now, that was great throughout the month of May, and it helped us even into June. Now, what happened at the very end of May, a couple things happened. You remember, the George Floyd video and the awful situation that happened through that deal in Minneapolis, but also right around the same time, we had a fire at our distribution center. And again, we had just filled it up to max capacity of inventory, and corporate had just run dry of inventory. And we had all these sales we had to deliver. So it was a Friday night. I just got home from a really long day, long week, had dinner with my family, about to relax. Around 8:30, I get a call. Hey, there's a fire at the DC. I'm not sure how bad it is. My business partner, Manny, got here before I did, and said, Charlie, it's real bad. The whole distribution center was split up in smoke. What had happened was some cigarette butt had caught on fire under some cardboard that was outside the distribution center on a hot summer day, and made its way into the DC. The whole distribution center was filled up in smoke. We thought we were going to have a 99% inventory loss. And this is just like the worst thing that you can have in our industry. Within 24 hours, we learned that we didn't have a total inventory loss. The sprinkler system worked how it had. The fire department had come. They blew the smoke out. And when we started to open up the furniture that was sealed pretty well, there was no smoke damage. We had maybe a 2 or 3% inventory loss. And so within 24 hours, we went from like staying up all night trying to figure out how we're going to do deliveries at a 1DC or where we're going to get this inventory from, like major issues. I'm calling my bank, telling them we had a fire, calling corporate, telling them we had a fire. What are we going to do? There's no inventory, by the way, because they'd run dry, and to like almost be untouched, unscathed. So just, oftentimes we've said God's had his hand on our business, and we're very mindful of that. Some of the things that he saved us from were decisions we didn't do, and that he saved us from, and or opportunities or doors he opened for us. And so that was just a huge blessing for us. So we survived that. What happened after the George Floyd incident, we began to speak to some of our people, our memory makers, and they were super hurt. They were incredibly hurt. Our memory makers of color, our Black memory makers. And we just said, we can't, we've just come out of dealing with a fire. And so we said, you know what, we can't be okay with this. We can't be silent. We can't be complicit. And so we said, we're going to take an anti-racism stance and a commitment. We know that when we get behind something, it's not just something that we say. We're going to get really behind it for a long period of time. So we formed a council, an anti-racism council, and with 2 co-executives on our leadership team. And so there's been a lot that's come through that. One of the things that we did was a moment of silence for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. We shut down our entire company in honor of, in memory of George Floyd and against police brutality and systemic racism or structural racism. And so we began as a leadership team to really learn how to be an anti-racist and to just to inform ourselves, to become better informed about how to treat each other. We celebrated Juneteenth as an organization. We have had a series of table talk sessions internally where we bring diverse backgrounds and departments just to talk about our experiences. And now we're forming a more formal committee with different action points and items about how we're going to really be an active participant against anti-racism as an organization. We've also had at our Purpose 828 event, which you attended, our virtual event, we had a conversation on DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and belonging with Dr. Nicholas Pierce, an expert in this topic, who has, he wrote The Purpose Path, by the way, and he had come and spoken with our organization last November, but we wanted to have just a vulnerable conversation with him. So that was one of our 4 sessions we had, and our people really enjoyed that we're willing to talk about these uncomfortable conversations and just put it out there and have dialogue about it, as opposed to hoping it goes away or wishing it goes away or wishing that it doesn't exist. So it's really about learning about how to be more empathetic and listen better to our people about their experiences and how we can really challenge ourselves around the decisions we make and rethinking about certain things about how we got here and how we can make it better for all of our memory makers. So there was that, and then there's been the supply chain issue in our industry, which I alluded to with the inventory situation, and I'll come to the tail end here, and then COVID happened. But so business has been good because everyone's been at home and they need furniture and mattresses, but there's been no supply. So for the last 24 weeks, I say no supply. It's been we've just been short, and so we've been really frustrating our customers who've been waiting way too long, or we've been breaking promises or cancellations, and we've overwhelmed our call center. And so we're just, and our people get paid commissions on delivered sales. Well, if we're not delivering what we're writing, we have massive cancellations, like massive 3 and 4 times the amount of cancellations, which is super demoralizing. You start your day, you're excited about the week you had last week, but you start with a major cancellation through no fault of your own if you're at retail and work and live off of commissions. So that's just been really, really tough to deal with. And it's just something we're going to have to endure and absorb. So we've created programs to help our people have a certain baseline of income coming in, even if their delivered commissions aren't there. And so we've done things of that nature. And it's just been really tough for our industry and for our customers too. And we hate it. We don't like to give that level of service. And then we said, well, what can we do to pour back into our people? We're used to having like purpose events, leadership summits. And so, and then COVID happened. Well, we used to have these leadership summits that were with our leaders. Well, we couldn't get together as our leadership team. So we said, well, we're all used to these video meetings and everything now that we Teams and Zoom and WebEx. And so we said, well, let's have a purpose summit. But look, everyone's tired and overworked and burnt out. We're not going to ask. So we just had like myself and 2 other people on our company. We said, we'll do it. We'll take it on. We'll plan it. And we came out with a day, Purpose 828, but we democratized it and made it open to all of our memory makers. And that was Friday, August 28th. It was our encore event for Purpose 828. And so we had 4 sessions. We brought back Zach Mercurio. We had the conversation with Dr. Nicholas Pierce that I spoke about. And we had Justin Barnes, who spoke about identity. And we always like to say purpose begins with identity and your authentic identity and who your identity is in the creator's eyes. And so he's writing a book called Clarity with an ID. And so he began writing the book after he came to our company a year ago and really saw what our culture was about. He renamed his company Transformative Retail Group. And so it's just kind of been cool to see him work. He's another Ashley HomeStore licensee. He's just a great leader. And then we also brought back Justin Jones-Fosu to talk about Circles of Grace. We had 4 sessions. We had a full day event just to restore and renew our people's spirits and to pour back into them. Also over the summer, we opened 2 new stores. I mean, I don't know another retailer in the second quarter that opened a distribution center and 2 new stores. I mean, on some of them, construction got paused. But once we were able to restart it, and my business partner, Manny, and Tim Sales, who oversees our construction, and Janet, who oversees our visual team, they just did a tremendous job of somehow, some way figuring out with masks on and everything else and physical distancing. I don't like social distancing. I believe that leads to isolation. I think we need more social connection. I think it's physical distancing that is what we're trying to say there. And so, we opened 2 stores in that were already planned, but had gotten paused. And so we opened 2 stores. And I should say also about the second quarter, where we thought we were going to lose millions of dollars and figure out how to survive. It actually turned out to be the most successful quarter in our company's history from a profitability standpoint. And so that was just a huge blessing. We did not receive any government funding, and I'm happy for all who did. I had to explain to every landlord and such that we didn't qualify because all the stipulations that they had an arbitrary line of 500 employees, and if you had more than that, you didn't qualify, and so we failed the test to qualify. So I hope those who got the funds, I hope that all their money gets forgiven. I'm happy for them, but we did all these things to get through, and we had to do it with like we had to pick ourselves up from our bootstraps, so to speak. We didn't get government support at that level. We were able to negotiate some reprieve with our landlords, but they weren't abatements. Most of them were deferrals, where we're going to have to pay that back over time. But we had to preserve cash and so to take care of our people. And so we brought all of our people back. We opened 2 stores. We had a successful quarter where we thought we weren't going to. But then, I had some more personal struggles. I will tell you the whole thing, and this will be the last thing about just being vulnerable. People think about depression and they think that that's a weakness. And I will tell you that when people talk about the anxiety and everything that comes from the mental health issues with, this pandemic and being isolated, I had a situation in early August. There was a convalescence of events that occurred. I won't go through the details of those, but there was just so many things kind of hit at once, but I just was in my head, and it was tough. I battled depression for about 2 weeks, and I couldn't sleep. I was trying to fight my way out of it. And my wife was very helpful and supportive during that time. One of the things that I had to do, I'm used to having something to look forward to. And this COVID year has just been about almost at times it's felt like we're just surviving or treading water. so what is my next goal, and what's it all worth, and trying to find the joy in it. I like to be excited about what I'm working on or working towards, and and I know this sounds like when I repeat it back, it sounds like a first world problem, and I'm so aware of that. But it was just going through some stuff mentally, man, and battling it. So I went through a tough 2-week stretch, and I fought through it. And maybe a couple weeks later, I had just a bad day, and I fought through it. Maybe a couple weeks later, I had another bad day, but I will tell you, I tried to use that time to get. I had to lose some weight, so I tried to exercise my way out of it for a bit. And so I'm proud to say over the last couple of months, I've lost 20 pounds the right way through better diet and exercise. I've got sad to say, I've got 30 more pounds to go, but I've made some progress towards that. I'm in a much better spot mentally. It's just trying to remember about my purpose and and it's not that I forgot it, but it's just trying to make sure that I just getting out of my head and getting out of the Groundhog Day syndrome. And I like to connect with people, and I like to do it in person, but I just had to understand that this isn't forever. This too shall pass. We will get through this, and there'll be joy on the other side of it. I started thinking about hey, we've got to use this time to get better. Even though the bamboo that grows, when you start seeing it above ground, it grows like a foot a year, right? And people said, man, that's really sprouting. But really, all the growth was underneath the ground. I started thinking about cicadas that burrow under the ground for 7 years. In North Carolina, we've got these 17-year cicadas. And then they come out of the ground and they fly around like crazy. And so I'm really trying to see what am I doing under the ground? While we're treading water, how can I use this time to get better personally or professionally, to get out of my comfort zone, to share a little bit of vulnerability on podcast, or just to get better, healthier, to spend more time at home, and to have more of life's best memories with my family, and more family meals, and just trying to find better joy. I think I've really become more empathetic during this time period. And I think that'll serve me well. And so I think that it's just, I've become empathetic to people who are going through their own issues of mental health and anxiety, and whatever way that this COVID situation, it could be losing a loved one from coronavirus, which is very real. It could be the issues of racism that someone has dealt with their whole life and are coming to the surface, when they see a video of police brutality, and they don't feel comfortable. It could be any of those things. I think as a country, as a people, we're called, kindness should emerge through this. On the other side, we've become too divisive as a country. We need to be united as a country. We need to be more empathetic to each other and what each other are going through. So I really hope that through if you remember what happened after 9/11, the country pulled together, and we were never more united, a lot of people would say, than in the few months after that. And sometimes that has faded. But if you think about what's it going to be like on the other side of COVID? How would we have gotten better? And even though we're talking to each other through a video screen, I feel like you and I have had more intimate and closer conversations together, and grown closer together as brothers in Christ. I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for what you're doing and getting the chance to connect with you more and within your network. So how are we going to grow through this? How are we going to let's do this? I had found myself just waiting to get to the other side of this, and then it just becomes a wasted year. And I said, well, wait a second, I've got to use this year to still try to get better some way, somehow. And that all boils down to people and relationships. And what I realized was, I don't want to have gone through my whole career and life and not have really developed the friendships, partnerships, relationships that truly matter. When I'm 80 years old looking back, I want to be really proud of not just what I accomplished or how my kids grew up or the marriage I had, but I really want to be proud of the relationships that I built and the connections that I made and the impact that I had. And so that's really kind of pegs closer to my purpose and why I think I'm here on this planet. And so I just want to try to have a positive impact in some way, and I don't want to forget that. And so I think there can be joy even in this period of time. We can still grow through this period of time. We can still be those cicadas who are burrowing underneath the ground. And won't it be beautiful? Can't there be a beautiful blossoming on the other side of this when we can look back and say how we grew through this, how we develop more empathy or kindness or better listening skills or better connections on the other side of this. So that's kind of my story, Davin, man. We're still fighting the good fight, brother, every single day here in the Carolinas.
Brother, I can't thank you enough for being so vulnerable. And, it's interesting because the shirt that you're wearing is so prophetic. I know that you were very intentional as a team in terms of choosing your theme of the year. And I know that you chose that theme before everything that you just shared happened. You had already decided that the theme of the year was going to be united. And if there was ever a year that that word needed to truly live out its purpose, it's 2020. Um, I know that we share a little bit of your story in the book, Finding Purpose at Work, which will be out here shortly. But there's a piece of it that there was a chapter, and the chapter was entitled, "We're All in This Together." That was the title of the chapter. And Zach Mercurio, who you mentioned earlier, I even shared a glimpse of his finding purpose in a pandemic in that chapter. But that chapter was written prior to the George Floyd incident, prior to everything that has happened in the political and social spectrum over the last few months. And the chapter was about being unified, about what are we doing in the midst of this season? Who are we becoming in this season? How are we pulling together in this season and getting through this together? What are the stories that we're going to tell on the other side of COVID? The whole reason that this shirt and then COVID happened is because I sit in meeting after meeting after meeting, and I hear people talk about their playbook for 2020 that you held up earlier. Here's what we're going to do this year. This is what we're going to do. The scripture says, right, that man has plans in his heart, but it's the Lord's purpose that prevails, right? We have our idea of what we thought that we were going to do. And then there was this whole other thing that happened. But every sentence has ended with, well, I was going to do this and then COVID happened. But what we're not sharing is, what are the things that have happened in this season underground, like the bamboo tree, like the cicadas? What are the things that have happened behind the scenes that are good and wholesome and unifying and praiseworthy that would not have happened if COVID didn't happen? You had your best quarter that you would have ever had. Would have that happened if COVID didn't happen? I attended your day of purpose on 8/28, and I saw people singing, employees of yours singing and dancing, and people with smiles and a level of joy and unification in that day. Would have that happened had it not been stimulated by COVID? You have an amazing story of a fire that in your industry is doomsday. I mean, a fire in a distribution center at max capacity, and you only have 2% loss. Talk about God's provision on your business. Would have that happened? I mean, there are so many stories that, man, you talked about battling a season of depression. And I can't thank you enough for sharing that. And I will tell you, I didn't tell you this the other day when we were talking, but I know that we had a call in mid-August to talk about the Engage platform and some things with your team. And as we were on that call, we got done the call, and I looked at Adam and I said, Adam's our director of client partnerships here at Purpose Point. And I said, man, something was off with Charlie today. I'm not sure what it is, but I've come to know Charlie pretty well over the last year. And there was just something's not right. There's a joy that's missing. There's something that's off, and then I attended your 8/28 day just a couple weeks later, and you were back, right? And you were I could just see the joy emulating from you and all that's there. And it just comes down to that quote that I shared before, that circumstances don't define us, choices do. And what I appreciate and honor about you, Charlie, is that from day one, it didn't matter that all of a sudden COVID happened. It didn't matter that you were dealing with your own health situations. It didn't matter that you were dealing with your father's health situation. It didn't matter that you had a fire in the warehouse. It didn't matter that we all of a sudden had a social injustice fire in this country. It didn't matter that we're still in the middle of a political fire in this country. It didn't matter that you were dealing with your own emotional, mental fire through depression. You continued to make a decision to say, I am not going to allow these circumstances to change who I am, how we treat our people, how I lead them through this, and how we deliver on our purpose. You kept pressing forward. man, if there is anyone who's going to have stories to tell about 2020 on the other side of this, it's going to be you and your memory makers.
Well, I hope so. I hope so. I know you love, thank you for all those words. It's very powerful words that you just shared. And I truly appreciate them. And it's interesting. You can't really fake it, right? So it's interesting that you were perceptive and noticed that in mid-August. That's probably right around the time when, and you saw the difference there. But I have another quote. I may have shared this with you before, but one that that I heard along the way in this journey that it's really resonated with me, and I've said it to myself a lot and to others. COVID, like, this didn't happen to us. No, it didn't happen to us. This happened for us. This happened for us. This didn't happen to us. There's some things that had to change. You talked about the choices, and choices come from our perspective around the circumstantial things that are happening around us, and the perspective and the choices that we choose to make as a result of that. And so if our perspective is that it happened to us, then we're going to be doom and gloom, and we're just going to look at the glass half empty. But if it happened for us, we're going to look for the opportunities to improve ourselves, our businesses, to deepen our relationships, our connections, and to figure out how we grow and prosper and help our people prosper through this. And so I really believe COVID didn't happen to us. It happened for us. And we will get stronger, and we will be more united as a people and humanity through this. And that's my hope. That's my prayer. And the other thing is people like you who are doing what you're doing every single day, who are helping make that happen. And I truly believe that. And I just want to encourage you to keep doing what you're doing. God's put a purpose on your life, and you go at it with a passion every single day, and you inspire me, you inspire others, and you're having a ripple effect throughout the country, and with everyone you get to touch and impact. And so I'm excited about for your book launch. I told you I want to get several dozen or 100 copies for our people to share with them. And so just keep doing what you're doing, man. It's a great work, and we're big fans, big supporters of Purpose Point and everything that you guys are doing there.
Well, that means a lot, Charlie. I appreciate you. It's there's a reason that your story is in the subchapter Balcony People, because you are a balcony person. And for those who are not familiar with that term, we all have balcony people. We are all, like you said, it's such great perspective. COVID didn't happen to us. I hope it happened for us. And it's given us an opportunity to choose how we respond to it, right? Do we panic? Do we pander? Or do we position ourselves to come out of this, closer in tune with our purpose for which we were created, for the difference that we were made to make? And we can't come out of this closer to that purpose if we're panicking or if we're pandering to the situation. And we have people, we're in the arena for those of us who are dealing with this, and we're all dealing with it. But for those of us who have made the decision, you know what, we're not going to panic. We're not going to pander. We're going to position. We're going to fight. We're going to fight for who we are. We're going to fight for our purpose. We're going to fight to be unified. We're going to fight to come out of this stronger than we went into this and make the best of this opportunity. For those of us in the arena, there are balcony people who are watching, right? And we have platforms like social media, like LinkedIn, where people are quietly watching and saying, how's Charlie handling the situation? How's Davin handling the situation? How are the memory makers at Broad River Retail handling the situation? And we have people on the balcony who are watching and who are cheering us on, hoping that we continue to fight and that we emerge victorious. And Charlie, what I love about you is that you've been a balcony person for me. I know that you've been a balcony person for your entire organization, where you continue to cheer people through this time. So thank you for the difference that you've continued to make, not only within Broad River Retail and Ashley HomeStores, but for all of those that continue to, hear your voice on this cast, on the posts that you post on LinkedIn that are echoing also across the country and throughout the world. I would just encourage you. I know that you shared about the depressing piece of this, and I'm just going to say this. I wasn't going to say this on the cast, and I know that we're ending short here on time. I just had lunch with Adam just before we jumped onto this. Actually, that's a lie. Adam is listening to this and had lunch, and my lunch is sitting on my desk over there because we ran out of time. But I said, I can't tell you how many nights that I've sat there and just said, you know what? I just want to give in. I want to pander. I don't know if I want to press on anymore. Does any of this make a difference? Are people actually listening? Do my words matter? Do your words matter? Or is everyone so caught up in the firestorm of COVID and social injustice and the political climate that we're just making a bunch of noise? And one person reached out to me recently and said, I was listening to a talk that you gave 10 years ago. And 10 years ago, that talk changed my life. It changed my career. And I've never stopped thinking about it. Your story matters. Don't ever stop doing what you're doing. And I heard that message at a time where, quite frankly, Charlie, I was probably in a similar place where maybe you were in August. And I just wasn't sure. And so I just want to encourage you, Charlie, and I want to encourage those listening to this, that there are people watching you, and there are people that are counting on you to continue to keep fighting the good fight, to not grow weary in well-doing, because they know that you have a purpose that you are here to fulfill, and they're counting on you to fulfill it.
We'll keep pressing on, brother. We'll keep pressing on, man. Appreciate the opportunity, and happy to join you guys again on this live cast. And this didn't happen to us, it happened for us, and we'll all pull through together.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. But hey, and when we have dark days, reach out. We got to call each other, and there will be dark days. We have to expect this pandemic is tough. And just because it's tougher for someone else doesn't mean that we're not allowed to say it's tough for us too. And there are going to be dark days. So let's expect them, but let's give ourselves a little bit of latitude to just endure that for what they are, but don't stay down. Let's pick ourselves back up. And sometimes you just have to, remember who, I love what you mentioned, Zach Mercurio, put a person on the other end of the supply chain for the impact of what we have. And when we understand that it could be just one person, but when there's someone else whose life matters or depends on the work or the output that we're doing, it does matter, or they're watching us to see how we respond, then that alone can help lift us back up. And so I'll continue to pray for you, Davin, and the work that you're doing. Reach out, call me anytime, and I'm here for you. And love you, brother, and thank you so much for what you and Adam and the entire Purpose Point organization are doing.
Oh, it's my pleasure, brother. And I'm here for you as well. I appreciate your time. I thank you for being here today. I truly believe 2020 is not going to be just a year that we talked about purpose. It's going to be a year that we lived it out together, unified, as your shirt says, united. So
Got it.
Thank you for continuing to champion leading with purpose. And for those of you who are listening today, again, we had Charlie Malouf, the CEO and president of Broad River Retail, doing business at Ashley HomeStore. And I encourage you, connect with him on LinkedIn, check out what the memory makers at Broad River are doing. They are just championing what it means to be united and to lead with purpose and fight through purpose through this time. We look forward to seeing you on another episode of the Finding Purpose LiveCast next time. And until then, live purposefully.